got to think long and hard to find a better regular season game that I've seen in my lifetime. It certainly was the greatest regular season game that I've witnessed, and I've been in this business for about 25 years, and I can't count the amount of games that I have been to in my career, but this was something special to behold. I mean, back and forth, nip and tuck, and I get what Teddy Bruschi was talking about when he tweeted how, you know what, just make one or two great plays defensively, and that qualifies as a great defensive game if you give your offense a couple of extra possessions. I get that because obviously the softening of the rules and the softening of the game has compromised it to some degree. I get what people are saying with that. But to be here in this moment, you're talking about 90 to 100,000 people. There wasn't an empty seat in the house. There wasn't standing room. It was something spectacular to behold, and both teams lived up to the hype. You got Jared Goff sitting there throwing for 413 yards. You got Patrick Mahomes throwing for 478 yards, 6 touchdowns. But, oh, by the way, five turnovers for crying out loud. You got 1,001 yards accumulated, 105 points. Oh, by the way, you know, not only that, you got 14 touchdowns that was thrown. Max Kellerman, I told you about my man Tyreek Hill. 10 receptions, 215 yards. Put on a show. Travis Kelce, my brother from another mother. I can't dismiss what he did. He had 10 receptions for 127 yards. His touchdown to Scott to tie the score at 30. Nip and tuck back and forth. The Rams go up 13-0. The crowd is sitting there taunting me because they were watching First Take and knew that I had picked the Chiefs to win this game. And I was looking at them, Max and Molly, and going like this, calm down. Calm down. It's going to be all right because Kansas City's going to come back. And sure enough, Tyreek Hill, touchdown. Kareem Hunt, touchdown. Next thing you know, they're up 17-16. You know, you see the strip sack by Aaron Donald. You see Ubicam. He sits up there and snatches an interception with one hand and ultimately gets a pick 6 on that. But here comes Kansas City again. They sit up there. They score another touchdown with Kelce, with Hunt, with Conley, for crying out loud. Every single place you turn, it was back and forth, back and forth. There wasn't a boring moment in this game, and I loved every single minute of it. 25 years in this business. This is one of the greatest moments that I have seen. I'm telling you right now, it was something special to be a part of. I just can't say enough about it, Max. I really can't.
This was a great game that lived up to hype. It is the exact game I expected to see. By the way, I expected the Rams to win. I expected the difference to be the defense. But I can't say it's the greatest regular season game ever because the kind of point-scoring environment right now is so absurd that you expect each team to score on every possession. You know, I think the game was actually elevated because some of those Rams takeaways, right? Like they scored defensively more than the Chiefs did, and that actually made the game a little bit better. It was like, no, it's not just going up and down the field every single possession. Sometimes the other defense scores, but the point is they're constantly scoring, and this is what the league wants. So, of course, it's great. And by the way, it's not simply the point-scoring environment. Those were two great head coaches calling a beautiful game, both of them. And the league has designed it such that it's really, really tough for the defenses. So last year's Super Bowl, was that the greatest Super Bowl of all time? No. It was a great Super Bowl. There's no question about it. But the first team to make a defensive play won the game. I don't consider Eagles-Pats among the top 2 or 3 Super Bowls of all time, but it was a lot of fun. And last night was even maybe better than that for a regular season game. You know, by the standards of regular season game, maybe it was even better than the Super Bowl by the standards of Super Bowls last year because of the stakes. These are 2 of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league. We expected this kind of game. We got it. It was so much fun. The lead changes, etc. But in a kind of point-scoring environment like this, lead changes mean less. It's less meaningful than figure even a game like Ravens from a couple of years ago. Remember when Joe in the snow, and they come back and they're like 4 lead changes in a game where like not a whole lot happened, and they wind up winning the game behind Flacco. Something like that feels more meaningful. Or Montana and Elway in '94. These 2 titans of the game, and Elway scores, he runs it in, and now they have a lead, but he left almost a minute and a half for Joe Montana, who was on the Chiefs at the time, to orchestrate this comeback, and the Chiefs win the game by a score. Those lead changes are more significant at times when it's harder to score. When points are cheap, it cheapens the lead change and the drama a little. So it was a great game. I'll always remember it. It's among the greatest, but I can't call it the greatest regular season game ever.
A couple of things I want to point out. Basically, you're talking about great pivotal moments. Tantalizing moments, comes down to the wire, and we see the heroics of somebody. I get that. I'm talking about start to finish. I challenge somebody to show me a better game than this one. That's number one. Number two, we want to sit up there and we want to talk about no defense or whatever the case may be. You know, the strip sack by Aaron Donald, Ubekam's 11-yard fumble return. That's a defensive play. The one-handed interception that turned into a pick six. That's a defensive play. Justin Houston's sack of Jared Goff that ultimately barely picked off and ran in for a touchdown. Those are three pivotal defensive plays. I saw Patrick Mahomes under pressure a lot. He was sacked a few times last night. 3 to Jared Goff's 5. But the bottom line is we saw him throw a couple of interceptions. We saw him stand back in the pocket. Who ultimately gets his body on Patrick Mahomes' arm? Ubekam. Ultimately, that leads to an interception by Marcus Peters. There were several defensive plays in this game that took place.
There were defense. Even Steve Nelson's. Remember the corners that he stopped the touchdown with a brilliant defensive play. It's not that there weren't guys making defensive plays. It's that the league has positioned it so that inventive head coaches with weapons, it's almost impossible to stop them from scoring. It's the nature of the game now. So it's like people who watch Golden State and Houston and think they're seeing the greatest basketball ever. I disagree. I think there's an equilibrium that you can break. So. Not the 04 Pistons, that's too much defense, but not this offense in the NBA either. I think the NFL is at a point now where there's so much offense, it's slightly cheapened.
Yeah. Those rules have been in place for a couple of years now. I ain't seen anybody drop 54. I didn't see 105 points scored. I didn't see 1,001 yards accumulated.